Boo, what up? I'm back. That was weird. I tried streaming yesterday and like the internet really fucked it. That was strange. We're back. What up? Today I'm gonna be watching a VaatiVidya video due to the request of someone on the YouTube. Somebody was like, there's another one, because I reacted to that Elden Ring hype thing that he did a while ago. And he's like, there's another one, it's like 30 minutes long. I'm glad somebody is hype about Elden Ring who knows what the fuck they're talking about. And you don't have to tell me twice, man. If you're gonna inflate my ego like that, I'm just gonna do pretty much whatever. So, that being said, let me pull this video up. Here we go. Hundreds of secrets in fucking Elden Ring's asshole. There we go. Boom. So we're gonna watch this. It's like pretty long. It's like 30 minutes long. But I'm interested in Elden Ring news. I'm always hyped for that game, so I'm down. I brought snacks and everything. I don't give a fuck. So let's do this shit. Do one of those. And bagoosh.
Before we begin, let me grace you with some breaking news regarding checkpoints. So for a while, we've had this screenshot. It's of two pot guys standing around a sliver of gold. But
Two
now we
pot
know what
guys?
that sliver of
Nice.
gold represents.
Pot
Recently,
guys.
the following description was captioned alongside
Yeah, I'm a
this
pot
image
guy.
in the Japanese gaming magazine Famitsu. It reads, "Graces will act in a similar manner to Dark Souls bonfires, acting as a checkpoint or base for the player." So there you go, they're checkpoints. Or bases, I guess. The word base is really interesting to me, and I really hope that these places can act as more of a mobile camp in some way. But what are graces from a lore point of view, at least? Well, according to a recent tweet from the Elden Ring Twitter, before the shattering, the lands between basked in the pure light of the greater will. Slivers of its blessing yet remain in hidden pockets, where lost graces wait to be found. So these are places where the grace of the greater will remains, and you can expect to set up camp around these places along your journey. Now, back to the trailer. So some people are going into Elden Ring completely blind. I've heard some people say they're only going to watch the trailer once. Me? Well, I've watched it so many times. I'm single-handedly responsible for Elden Ring being the most viewed trailer over the E3 period. I've also watched it frame by frame, painstakingly, and you might be surprised
Damn, dude.
at just
This
how
guy is
much you can
dedicated.
find. So here are all the secrets.
I'm glad you're watching this shit frame by
I've
frame,
seen.
so I don't have to.
Please let me know in the comments if you've seen more.
Good
First,
shit.
this gauntlet is the same one that's worn by the Tarnished character who features prominently in this trailer. He's featured so heavily here that you'd think he might be a sort of cover character for the game, but that role seems to apparently be going to this knight instead. At the very least, though, it might actually be an option to start with this armor set. There are 10 starting classes to choose from, apparently.
Damn, 10
This
classes?
cutscene just strikes me the exact same way as Sekiro's opening does, where the maiden approaches our character, who is left for dead. You can actually see her riding in on Yakul at the start here. If I had to guess, she's passing this mount over to us here. She has a faded scar or birthmark and a ring on her right hand. She actually pulls this ring off and passes it to us. Finally, her lips aren't moving in sync with this dialogue, but it does seem appropriate for what's going on. The Tarnished was
He's like zooming in
guided
in
by
fucking
grace
slow motion and
lost.
shit.
I
What
wouldn't
the
be
fuck,
surprised
dude?
if that line was quite literal, with the light rays from the tree in this scene guiding you to points of interest on the map. That's just a hunch, but...
And if you
speaking of
look here,
points of
she has a
interest,
tattoo on
here
her
are
right
some you
ass
can
cheek.
see. A cliffside gate, ruins in the bottom right, small buildings here, and a swamp in the bottom left. These shallow waters seem to continue all the way through the canyons cutting through the map, and I felt like the canyons might have been caused by
That's
some sort
cool.
of cataclysm. In previous leaks, that bridge in the distance was unbroken, but now debris from the bridge appears to be scattered across the entire landscape, suggesting that something tore through this area. That castle on the left appears to be the main legacy dungeon, and it too is pretty heavily scarred. It's a beautifully ruined scene, made better when you notice that the golden specks flying through the air, they aren't embers like they would be in Dark Souls. They're actually golden leaves from the tree. Perhaps it's dying. We see more of the shallows in this next scene. Here, homes and spires seem to have sunk into the earth, more proof that ruin has come to the lands between. Here,
All right, cool,
birds
man.
fly overhead, and it seems to be a misty morning, which makes me wonder if
I feel like this is some
comes with this time of day,
painting with
if it's
like
just
Bob
a
Ross
this
shit.
area. The same goes for those golden
Happy little
leaves
trees over
that
here and
unfold
over here, and
this
there's some
morning scene,
birds.
and many other scenes as
There's a
well,
little
despite the
cloud.
tree being quite close.
Tree in the
next scene,
background.
we're treated to yet another skybox, and this time our eyes are drawn to a sort of volcano in the distance.
That's
I
a cool
suggest
looking
it's a
area.
volcano because this rocky texture is seen again later in this dragon scene where magma sits on
Do
the
I get to
ground.
fight the dragon?
That might explain the smoke.
I want to fight the dragon.
As your eyes travel down, we realize that this autumnal scene has
It looks very Dark
different
Souls-esque
atmospheric
though.
effect.
At least they kept
It
the
has
art
these
style.
blue-white specks of
A lot of
light
the enemies are
floating
similar in
upwards.
their design,
This
even though they're
really
doing like
ethereal
a
atmosphere helps to explain
George
this
R.R. Martin
giant
story.
phantom flagpole hidden off to the side here, which itself has hints of interlocking rings upon its standard.
The fuck?
On the ground are two encampments filled with what surely
Invisible
are
tower?
enemies. And like the phantom flagpole, one tent also features a design with interlocking rings, and their banner features a giant tree. Both of these things suggest an affiliation with the Erd tree and the Elden Ring, which is at its source. Considering all this symbolism, it's probably no coincidence that these scenes are accompanied by the line, "The Golden Order is broken to its core," and this second shot really drives that point home. Here we see yet another crest of interlocking rings, and this one looks a lot like the Elden Ring logo, except with even more circles and a mess of tendrils running down from it. Below,
With
a
even
statue
more
of a
circles.
person kneels, surrounded by three
I mean,
wolves.
it's
And the
cool that
appearance
he's
of beasts
explaining all
here
this
might be
symbolism
no
and shit, but like,
coincidence either, because
get to the good
this
part.
is actually where we fight this beast clad in black and
Woo.
gold armor later in the trailer. You can tell it's the same place.
I like how it's slowed
Phantom
down. You
Hero
can kind of
also
see the
features
enemy
these
better.
Same pillars, which are filled
That
with
boss
these
design is really
skeletal
cool.
remains. Filling your architecture
Rengar?
with corpses
You gotta fight
is
Rengar.
Pretty dark for a group called the Golden Order, though there is plentiful evidence of this sort of immurement within history and folklore. Lastly, we hear crow noises here, and that's originally what I thought was in the background, but in the background there's actually
They're dragons.
flying past.
Those dragons
Next,
sound like
we
crows.
see
Sick.
very literal
I
bonfires
love when games do
surrounded by
that.
People frozen in place for some reason. There are also what look like red flowers under these trees. Little glowing pieces of vegetation are seen throughout the trailer, and the way they glow makes me wonder if these are gatherable resources. Finally, it's raining in this scene, which is another obvious weather effect to be added to the list. And another time of day to add to the list might be this sunset. It's also seen in this mounted screenshot. It makes me wonder if we'll actually get to see the sun go through the sky, and if we'll get to see these skyboxes and weather effects change in real time. I know we probably will, but I'm just so used to the sort of batching of instances where you see different skyboxes in previous games, and it'd be cool to see that happen dynamically. The character has a horn by their waist, which we see throughout the trailer. I'm assuming that it's a part of your equipment that shows up on
You
your
probably
character,
call your horse.
and I wonder what it does. It's definitely not used to call for Yakul. Instead, that's done with a simple whistle that sounds a lot like the one from Sekiro. Here,
Then
the
maybe it's
character
just
is
part of
actually
your
jumping
armor. I don't
over
fucking
graves
know.
that are sticking out oddly from the wall. You can see them better in this screenshot. In this screenshot, birds are perched around the place, which, is
Arrows.
groundbreaking. but
Oh my god, dude.
Souls games.
He's literally just pointing out
Also,
everything in the
you
background.
can see that Yakul actually has rings of gold around the base of his horns. It's something that's actually more clearly seen in this screenshot. maybe he has some lost golden grace of his own.
And here you can see some
Finally,
dirt
we
on his
clearly see
hooves.
a standard longsword in this shot, but start
Yep,
that weapon tally.
it's a sword,
There
man.
are some good ones. As the camera pans out, you
Cool.
can start to piece together the geography. For example, we approach this castle and the foggy valley from the front here, but this next scene shows us the castle and the valley from the side, meaning we must have traveled along this rocky cliff face on the right in the previous scene. There's actually also a tiny enemy here who is having trouble loading in at a distance. From using Cheat Engine, this is something that happens a lot when you disconnect the camera. Glowing lights can also be seen below the bridge, one blue, one gold, and perhaps they're items or a grace. It made me think, if I wanted to get down there, could I jump off this cliff and then double jump on Yakul right before I hit the ground? What follows is the scene with the wolf.
It's literally just
Previously, I
extrapolating shit.
speculated
We
that
have no
wanted
idea.
to use the surrounding geography to jump on top of it at the right moment to get to the castle it has on top, but Reddit user KidDarkness93 seems to have noticed a jump pad nearby, which does look like a very likely
Oh, that's cool.
alternative. Although I'm sure there's multiple ways up there,
Double jump
and
up
judging
the
by
side of a
the
cliff.
moss growing on its legs, I'd bet that this island only ever roams this swampy area. It is going very slowly though, so it might take a while to catch it in the right spot. In this mounted encounter, the enemy has a curved greatsword wrapped in cloth, seen later on in this clip. And in regards to the guarded caravan, well, I always thought that they were carrying like a coffin of some kind. My favorite theory that I read online, I can't remember where, is that it's transporting body parts, since that seems to be the trade of this area. Here we see a ton of hanging limbs, hooked so crudely that they're actually spilling blood onto the floor and dining tables below. Many of these arms are
That's cool scenery.
or double-ended, suggesting experimentation.
Whoa,
Arms are just a big theme of this
that's interesting.
area.
I wouldn't have noticed
On
that.
both sides of the painting, we can make out a lion emblem on these banners, which helps us figure out where we are. This is the same emblem that shows up on this castle, on these soldiers, and even on this big boss's axe. The painting itself is very difficult to make out. You can see it a bit better in this screenshot though. There's a human figure there, definitely, and he seems to have some sort of fur pelt or animal draped over his shoulders. Moving on, this flattened face has something that looks like a third eye on its forehead, and
Oh shit.
the roots underneath almost look like tentacles. Speaking of which, in a very similar case, the
Prometheus.
statues to follow also seem to have tentacles going down inside their robes. And what about these pot guys? Do you guys think they're hostile or friendly? After years of smashing pots,
What the fuck am I
is it
supposed to
finally
know?
time for the pots to smash back? Personally, I'd hope that they're friendly. You do see them around a Grace checkpoint, after all, right? The worst
It's cool that he's
combination
going into
is
the
if
trailer
they're
and shit, but I
friendly
don't like
and
speculation
they
with
drop
literally
good loot,
no
like
basis
crystal lizards.
in
Their arms
gameplay
do
or
seem
anything
to be
else.
made of a similar texture to crystal lizards.
Let's just
Please don't
speculate
make me
shit
do it.
randomly.
As you continue underground, you might have noticed that a grill is missing, suggesting that you can go further below. And then we come across another many-armed enemy. Interestingly, he's wearing a crown, just like the other many-armed character that we see later in the trailer. I feel like that's an
I think that's the
interesting
dude in the
trend.
painting.
Maybe this kingdom's habit of experimentation with limbs goes back quite a long way. Finally, leaving the underground, we enter the castle. This boss blocks our progression, and a golden fog gate actually appears behind him. His robes and magic weapons that he summons,
He has
they
a
all mark
scorpion
him
tail?
as a sort of sorcerer.
What?
Design-wise, though, he looks a lot like the Gru of Dark Souls 3, who have borderline identical sort of twisting horns on their heads. This guy also has these same horns on the end of an enormous tail. And at first it looks like these horns are all that make up his head, but
Or maybe
you can
that's
actually
the
see
dude in the
his
painting.
face
He has
hidden
white
below.
hair too.
Interestingly, he also has a similar mess of grey hair to us. So during the fight, you can actually see a sort of obelisk with a blue glow in the background, and it's the exact same obelisk we see later in the trailer where the character summons help. So these summons also have a similar blue light, and I bet these stones mark the areas where you can summon at. Speaking of which, another summon is seen in this area. It's a spirit bird, which has prosthetic legs. I'm so intrigued by this summon.
Why does it have
to
robot
see
legs?
how it functions. There
That's
seems to be
tight.
so much variety in this system, although I am a bit worried that it might make the game a bit too easy. When the boss knocks us back, we get a good
Man, you
view
don't
of
need to
the
use good
character's long
summons.
sword,
You can
which
just have
is
pop
imbued
boys.
with a sort of blue tint around the hilt, marking it as a sort of magic weapon. This magic effect, when used, also appears around the weapon, which marks it as a sort of weapon art, and I wonder, can magic weapon arts only be applied to magic weapons?
No,
Like this long
they already
sword?
said you can
The
mix and
tunnel,
match weapon
there are
arts
some
between
very
weapons.
brightly glowing flowers over here that I bet we can loot, and the tunnel ends.
I'm
with
sure you
some
can make any
enemies,
fucking
one
weapon
of
blue.
which has a conical hat or helmet that I thought was worth pointing out.
Woo, I
The
like that.
lion armor
I want that helmet.
of the character in this scene. The enemy they're fighting actually has the lion
That shit's tight.
crest on their armor, and they're also wearing a mask as a part of their helmet, which we'll talk about later. They actually change which enemy you're fighting during this cut, and then a little golden glow heads towards our character after the enemy's death, which gives us a hint at
Souls.
the type of golden soul currency that we can expect to receive in Elden Ring. It's a similar gold to these golden leaves that fall from the tree in this nighttime scene.
Yeah.
Just looks so stunning against the dark blue sky. I love it. I guess the leaves fall from the tree at random points during the day. An enormous moon is visible here, as are a couple
There's
of
more
crude
shit.
tents. And now that Graces are confirmed to be where our checkpoints lie, I'm less convinced that we'll be able to sort of set up camp in the open world, but still kind of hopeful that something like this might be in the game. One cool thing to note here is that the grass and the trees are blowing rapidly in the wind, which might mean that they're reacting dynamically with the weather. So things like rain and wind and the leaves falling might be independent of the times of day, which I love, which means there's going to be a lot of different combinations of weather and skyboxes and lighting. You can also see the trees moving really quickly in this stormy scene with the Wolf Knight, who, as many have
I like his
pointed out
cool wolf
before
head.
me, is an obvious Berserk reference. Guts from Berserk obviously has a lot of wolf symbolism. Sekido is a shinobi named Wolf. Artorias was a wolf knight, and now we have this character who is the next in a long line, and he even has a greatsword like Guts. I love this design, but the way he's stepping off the edge awkwardly
It's
as he
broken.
performs this howl animation must mean that this is the player character, and the long grey hair that's similar to the hair of a Tarnished is helping to convince me of that. So I'd imagine that becoming a beast like this is sort of akin to the dragon covenants of Dark Souls.
Oh, that'd
except
be cool.
I guess we just become
If
a
I could be
beast
a
here
wolf man,
instead. Perhaps these sorts of
I'm a wolf
transformations are a
druid.
path that our Tarnished
Just like
take.
Diablo 2.
And if that's the case, can we turn into dragons as well?
Hell no.
This dragon has
Fuck
a
dragons.
spine of grey hair.
Wolfman is
on
way
his
more
back.
tight.
Just saying. Next, this cube item is clearly the item that we use for summoning, and
A Roderick
it summons
cube.
two helpers, which both seem to be the same enemy model, but equipped with slightly different gear. This one has a giant knife, and the other one has a sword. Wait, no, it's a whip. And then you can see it snap back into being a sword again. My best guess as to what's happening here is that it's either a whip sword like the puzzling stone sword from Dark Souls 2, or that turning a sword into a whip temporarily is a type of weapon art that we can give it for extra range. Bit of an odd one here. Next, this enemy has a cool greatsword, and our character is doing the dodge
This guy
attack,
has a
which will
cool
help
sword.
make ranged
Oh my god, dude.
Next, the
Some of
dragon
these things he's
has four
pointing out in the
legs,
trailer are
four
so
wings,
funny.
and a really rocky
This
texture.
guy's got a cool S
All
word.
things that would mark it as one of the great
Good shit.
archdragons.
Great
of the Souls
detective
series.
work.
Another familiar Souls trope is summoning
Fucking Sherlock
lightning, and
Holmes.
since this lightning comes down from the
This
heavens,
guy's got a cool S
I bet
word.
that lightning is a divine miracle here, just like it is in Souls games and Sekido as well.
It's so cool how he
So if
catches the
this
lightning bolt. I
dragon
didn't notice
is
that the
being
first
blessed by
time.
the gods, man, that would give Gwyn
Catch that
serious
shit.
conniption.
Touchdown.
As mentioned in another video, our character is performing a double jump here, and it's not to avoid the bolt of lightning per se, it's actually to avoid the ripple that goes along the ground from its point of contact. But look around the dragon this time, As mentioned earlier, the rocks in the background match this smoking volcano, and we can even see magma on the ground underneath the flames. But look around some more. Here, piled up and left discarded are coffin carriages that are identical to the one that the two giants are hauling earlier in the trailer. For some reason, it seems like these coffin carriages are being dumped in the volcano. Why? This volcano also doesn't seem like the only place we find the dragon. The next scene shows it back out in the open world, in an open field.
Is it really a volcano, or is the dragon just blowing fire all over the ground and
here we
breaking
get the first
carriages?
side profile of the sorcerer knight, who is, in this scene, holding an ornate staff sword thing. They're fighting near the Erd tree, but with a red sky.
Well, that's just like Breath of the Wild. They give you a special bow so you can fight the main boss.
In Breath of the Wild? Or is it a stage of the game that changes the skybox like we're used to in previous games? Who knows? Finally, there's also a strange sort of corruption on the ground here that really suits the red sky. The next shot reveals a more feline beast knight.
Yeah, Rengar.
With long white hair, like us. In this scene, our character dual wields a dagger, which would have had the quick step weapon art if this was Dark
Little
Souls,
ninja.
and they seem to have it in Elden Ring as well.
Boom, look at that little ninja.
Attack in this scene is by jumping this low sweep here, just like Sekiro would. As the trailer goes on, scenes flash really quickly, like this one with the Valkyrie. Pausing the frame here, we see two things.
Command grab.
First, the clear corrosion on her face, and second, a prosthetic leg. It's reflecting the light, showing a pattern on it.
That's sick.
There's clearly a sort of bolt keeping it in place here. As we get impaled, note that we're fighting around the roots of a great tree. I wonder if she's some sort of protector. In this scene, the boss's hand has 6 fingers, and it's stroking the maw of a great dead
I never would have noticed
dragon.
that.
This is its nostril, and here is a giant horn. It's actually the same head we see sewn onto him at the end of the trailer, and the same dragon that's seen briefly in the open world of the leaked footage. So, does he attach the head halfway through the fight? Is it a sort of phase 2 for him? Or is fighting him with the head a different way to fight this boss? You can note that he does do the raw cutscene in the same place as the Smash cutscene, after all. In this cutscene, the Tarnished draws his sword slowly. Now, it's rare for a Souls game to have the player interact with their weapon in a cutscene.
He's stroking
the reason it's rare is that different characters have different weapons.
I like the forward and backward.
Drawing something like a greatsword from the hip wouldn't
fucking
make sense.
gif.
So what's happening here then? I wonder, will this cutscene look the same regardless of what weapon you're using? Did they come up with a unique drawing animation for each weapon type? This one kind of baffles me, honestly. On the boss's back, you can actually see Sekiro's lost arm. Just kidding. Though if I had to guess, this would be the guy who took the Valkyrie's arm, or is at least responsible for the arm theme throughout the area. He also takes legs as well. You can see a couple of legs hanging off of him. And while his left leg seems to be that of a giant, his right foot is a mess of toes. It's kind of gross. There's some serious body horror going on in this trailer. Finally, there's a lion crest on his main axe, which
yeah, you mentioned that shit.
The lord of this castle and region. According to the official Twitter, he is a lord clinging to his ruined legacy, the ruler of a husk wrung dry by war. The word legacy is capitalized, and legacy dungeons were also said to be the main levels within each open world, and each one is said to contain a demigod. Therefore, it's very safe to say that he is going to be the main boss, or demigod, of this area. Man, the longer I hold off on making my story video, the more scraps of lore the Elden Ring Twitter throws at me. I'll just wait a little bit longer. Next, a tarnished dual wields curved swords here. These are different weapons.
Hey,
might be
that's
seeing
cool.
a bit of a return to a more dynamic way to dual wield weapons, kind of like in Dark Souls 2. The Bramble Knight also has a unique greatsword that I'm sure he drops, and we're fighting him at night, under the light of the Erd tree. Next, the dragon drive-by.
Damn, look
It's
at that
likely the
big
black
ass
horned
hammer.
dragon I mentioned earlier here, though it's kind of hard to
I
say.
want to make a two-handed character.
Here, the
I never
character
play
carries
two-handed
a
strength
huge
characters.
Two-handed spiked
That
hammer,
shit is sick.
and the same armor, better seen in this screenshot. Next, Lord Vessel Smo sends out a cascade of flames as he stands off against the Sorcerer Knight, wielding that same wrapped greatsword I mentioned previously. We also see a hint of his giant mace, which I hope he drops alongside that.
No, that looks cool.
Next, the giant has one arm, meaning we're probably going to run into his other arm somewhere else in the game at this rate.
Everybody's
He also
losing
has a
limbs.
flame
God damn.
deep within his chest and legs. His weapon is this sort of axe staff. It's double-ended, and our weapon is a sort of short blade with blue runes. This is the second time we've seen a
That's a fatty straight
sorcery-themed
sword.
basic sword
That shit's
with
thick.
a sort of blue-tinged base. So I really do wonder
That
if
looks cool.
these are a class of magic weapon now, or if these magical properties can maybe be bestowed upon them at a blacksmith, maybe?
Yeah, man. You can probably add it to any weapon.
Next, the castle. It's like Bloodborne crossed with Irithyll. I love it. The gargoyle statues are seen again in this next
The
indoor
sneaking
scene,
shit, that's
confirming
tight.
that this is the same place.
I like sneaking.
Here, our character wields a sort
That'd
of
be fun to do.
sorcery halberd. The enemies wield crossbows, rapiers, and the main enemy has a simple sorcerer's staff. His headpiece is already the focus of many Burger King memes. And lastly, there is a bird in a small cage here on the side.
Burger King
Speaking
wizard?
of animals,
Oh,
around
shit.
the great stag, visible even before it spawns, are many smaller, brighter ones wandering and grazing upon the field. The masked
Maybe you get
player
hit by
character
those if
in
you
this
touch 'em.
shot is the same as in this screenshot, except this time
What the fuck?
they're wielding claws instead.
Creepy
of flame.
gimp mask?
And they're wearing a mask, which is a bit of a theme for the entire trailer. This next character we kneel at has a mask. The woman beside the giant knight has a mask. There's a giant masked cart. This enemy has one too. Masks. They're a good way to prevent your animators from having to animate mouths in cutscenes, which I know From Software probably doesn't like, so I bet that's why they're such fans of them here. Man, that Demon Souls remake, it's a tough act to follow.
That shit
In
is
this next
good.
scene, we see that limbs aren't
I can't wait to
the
play
only
Demon
body
Souls,
parts
man.
being
I gotta get a
repurposed.
PS5.
This guy's helmet and
That's sick.
upper body armor feature a ton of ears, all the better to hear those books with, I guess. Next, this hand has way too many fingers. Really gives me a sort of body horror chill and reminds me of those terrifying hands from the early Zelda games. I feel like those
Yeah, I never played those.
as a child. The middle finger has many rings. And
The
one
middle
ring
finger's
is a
got
giant
rings?
Purple gem. The player character here seems to be using a black flame spray attack against the hand, to little effect.
Middle finger that
Behind
bitch.
the hand, we see a giant head, which actually looks a lot like Void from Berserk. And behind that, even, the Erd tree is still seen, even though this is a snowy area. The tree must just be central to a lot of the open worlds, I imagine. This next scene happens fast.
I think the tree
but it's
is
a
literally in
masked
the middle.
carriage with 3 flamethrowers on each side, and the character has a spear and a great
Kind of the
shield.
point.
The eye in this scene seems to be that of a cyclops, since you can see the bridge of its
Damn, he's got a
nose below,
Sharingan?
and the 8 other marks on the eye are more pupils. The winged knight here is the same one we saw standing next to the masked woman. He has a flat helmet and this horned great shield. He's just grown wings here. And finally, there's a giant tree on the tower in the final cutscene, along with the same diagonal marks on the towers seen earlier. I can't wait to learn about the history of this place, but let's
I just want to
end
play this
today
game.
with a snippet of an interview featuring George
Hey.
R. R. Martin. where he
Hey,
finally
here's the new
talks about
shit.
and
Here's the
acknowledges
interesting shit.
Elden
We
Ring.
made it.
Enjoy.
I know that you've recently been a part of developing a video game, and it seems to me like it's sort of a natural fit for a fantasy fiction writer to work on a video game. How is that, different from what we know you for working on?
Well, it actually is considerably different. I've played some video games. I'm not a big video gamer.
I'm not a big video
called the
game.
Elden Ring, and it's a sequel to a video game that came out a few years ago called Dark Souls, and it came out of Japan. My work on it was actually done years ago. These games, they're like movies. They take a long time to develop. Basically, they wanted a
A
world
world.
to set the game in. They wanted world building as a big factor in fantasy and science fiction. You're not only talking about the characters and the plot, but the setting is almost as important as everything else. Tolkien's Middle-earth, Robert E. Howard's Hyborian Age, the Foundation universe of Isaac Asimov. I worked up
The foundation
a
is sick.
fairly detailed background for them. And then they took it from there. So, it's been several years since I've last seen them, but they would come in periodically and show me some monsters they designed or the latest special effects or the cool things. But the game has been very slowly developing, and now it's coming out in January, I believe. So I'll be as excited as anyone else to see it.
Now, before you start saying that Elden Ring is a sequel to Dark Souls, no, I seriously doubt that he accidentally revealed that it's a literal sequel. I think he obviously just meant that it's a successor to Dark Souls. But thank you guys for watching and supporting.
All right.
And
I guess
enjoy
I
watching
learned
the next
some
video,
shit that was
which
cool.
I promise is the story one.
A couple of things. The story one might be more interesting. I don't know. It was cool to see some of the weapons and shit that are going to be in the game. And learning more about the lore through just snippets in the trailer. There's just not a whole lot of trailer there, man. It's hard to turn that short-ass trailer that they released into like 29 minutes of content without getting into like, here's the freckles on her ass cheek, and like, here's the scar on her fucking left nose bridge. Like, okay, cool, man. Some of that shit I didn't need to know. But overall, that's pretty good. That being said, what are we at? 36 minutes? Alright. Cool. I'm probably gonna play some shit. I think Diablo 2, now that it actually is gonna work. I wanted to play Diablo 2 more last night, but my internet straight to shit for some reason. Did not work all day. So now that it's finally up and running again, I might play more of the beta. I was having fun with that Javzon while I was able to actually play, but for some reason it was just lagging up a storm. What I think I'm gonna do is change the title and all that shit, get up, stretch after that long ass video I just watched, and then I'll be right back. Play some Diablo. Alright, be cool.